Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Coburn, and today's episode, we're going to do another Twitter request. This is from Joshua P. Forrest on Twitter. He basically requested a Barry Church analytics profile, which I figured, is a good sort of thing it's a good thing to look into because have not done a ton of safeties. And I do know that there is some, maybe not a ton of confusion, but safety is one of those positions where there is actually a pretty big divide between free safeties and strong safeties in terms of usage, in terms of how they impact the game, in terms of athleticism even. So I figure, this is a good sort of place to start in terms of safety evaluation, on top of Barry Church being in the news for saying that he's on one of the most talented teams he's been on, including, the Dallas Cowboys and stuff like that. So getting into his profile, now, before I actually get into the nuts and bolts of him, in terms of his production at the college level, athleticism data coming out, and of course his NFL data, if there's any terms that you're not familiar with, so defensive market share, explosive lower body strength score, speed score, flexibility score. If you're not familiar with any one of those terms, I'm going to leave those terms in the description in terms of a definition for the terms I'm going to be talking about. If you still don't really understand what those terms are after you see the definitions, just leave a comment below and I'll be happy to answer whatever other questions you may have about the different sort of data stuff that I use. Or you could also check out one of my videos as well in the past, because I've done a lot of videos talking about data in different sort of ways, and you could go to any one of those videos in the past, for the most part, at least any of my first 100 plus videos, and get a good feel for me explaining these sort of data points. So with all that stuff out of the way, let's get to Barry Church in terms of what he looked like coming out of college, what his athleticism data looked like, and then, of course, what his NFL career has looked like thus far in terms of production. So starting with Barry Church in terms of his production at the NFL, not the NFL level, but the college level, he had a 93.72 solo tackle market share score, a 92.72 interception market share score, and a 78.89 pass deflection market share score. Based on my data that goes back to the 1989 NFL draft class, he pretty much hits every single marker indicative of a potential Pro Bowl safety. He doesn't quite hit the solo tackle market share score he needs to hit in terms of his solo tackle, because all pro safeties, at least strong safety types, hit 98.9 or higher. And then, of course, Pro Bowlers are about 77.66. So he's in between a Pro Bowl to All-Pro safety type. That's kind of the best way I can kind of describe it based on his profile. Very high solo tackle market share, very high interception market share, the bare minimum pass deflection market share that you want from a strong safety type, but he just doesn't quite have that sort of elite, like top cream of the crop type of solo tackle market share, which isn't an issue. It's just that he's just a little bit off when it comes to that data point. And then when you get to his athleticism data, also shows up pretty well too. Has an 85.94 explosive lower body strength score, a 45.46 speed score, and a 95.45 flexibility score. Based on his data as well, he pretty much hits all the marks you're looking for, indicative of a potential Pro Bowl safety type. Doesn't really have the all-pro stuff. I mean, he has certain components. I mean, he has the flexibility that you're looking for in terms of an all-pro strong safety type, but doesn't quite have the speed score that you're looking for or the explosive score that you're looking for. And this is with the majority of all-pro types and the majority of Pro Bowl types. So for the most part, he kind of graded out more as a Pro Bowl athlete coming out than anything else. So coming out of college, Barry Church had a lot of positives to him. He pretty much had the production indicative of a high-quality safety on top of the athleticism traits of a high-quality safety. So what did he do at the NFL level then? Well, looking at the NFL level, The biggest thing I could say about Barry Church is it took him a while to get started. For the most part, he didn't actually start full seasons until 2013, where he put up enough stats on paper to actually translate that into something on paper. But from that point on, he's been fairly good in certain types of metrics. He's been very good in terms of solo tackle market share from 2013 to 2015. He had anywhere from a 99.33 to 93.69 solo tackle market share score compared to his peers. So he's been very good when it comes to his solo tackle market share, or at least his ability to tackle one-on-one in space. His interception market share hasn't really been the best, though, throughout his career, except for 2016, where he was a little bit above average. His pass deflection market share has been kind of as well, hasn't exactly been the best when it comes to that. And again, he's a strong safety type. So it really just depends on what they're asking him and the scheme that he's in. Because sometimes strong safety types in certain schemes don't really get very many opportunities to make plays on the ball, at least in terms of coverage responsibilities and stuff like that. But the bottom line is he's pretty much produced like a strong safety type. Nothing really that special, though, about being his strong safety type. I mean, he's not really putting up the sort of interceptions and pass deflection market share indicative of like a high-quality strong safety like a Eric Berry or a Cam Chancellor or somebody like that. But he is putting up at least what you ask of a strong safety, and his total impact, and the total impact takes all these scores, combines them, and then compares them to the rest of the NFL. He's been hovering around a 79.04 to 79.21 to 79.29. In his best seasons, he's been hovering around that area when it comes to his total impact score, which puts him at about a top 30 score in terms of safety impact. So he's pretty much been, and if you think about the NFL as 64 starters, being in the top 30 means that he is an above average safety. And I don't see any reason to kind of dispute that based on paper. For the most part, he gives you above average safety play in his good years, with the exception of a few sort of issues here and there in like 2015, of course 2012, where he didn't really do much starting at all. He's pretty much been a above average safety type, and he hasn't quite hit the high quality marks that were indicative of his stuff on paper, though I would say that I'm not really going to get into the way that playing at a lower competition affects things, because this is a player that came from a non-Power 5 school. Maybe that affected some of this as well, and I've been trying to find the best way to kind of take into account strength of schedule and stuff like that, to kind of explain why he might be kind of off in terms of his projection. But I think there's a lot of positives here. I think with Barry Church in the future, you're looking at a guy who has the potential to put up above average safety play. 3 seasons out of the 4 seasons he was able to start a good amount of games. He was able to put up above average safety play and at least above average stats in one particular category or the other. So I think what you should expect from Barry Church in the future is someone that is going to provide you support when it comes to solo tackles. He's someone that can give you some highs in terms of interception, pass deflection market share if you put him, because again, at the college level, he was able to do well when it came to interception market share and pass deflection market share. Hasn't really translated to the NFL level, but he does at least have the basics on paper to kind of suggest that. On top of having really decent athleticism traits. The one thing I could say about this safety type is, it's an explosion flexible safety. It's the type of safety that you want closer to the line of scrimmage. You don't exactly want him covering a 4-3 slot. You don't want him covering T.Y. Hilton or some other sort of really fast slot type up the seam. Like, that isn't where Barry Church thrives. Barry Church thrives at the second level, coming up, supporting the run, supporting in the slot, supporting in sort of a zone capacity where he's able to take advantage of his explosiveness and take advantage of his flexibility. So he's reading, reacting, and attacking. He's basically coming downhill in any one direction. If you ask him to start going backwards, I think that's where some of his liabilities show up in terms of athleticism. But it's not the biggest deal in the world because it's just really dependent on the type of scheme that you have. This is the type of athleticism profile that in the right scheme can be pretty dang good. And I'm actually quite excited to see what he does in Jacksonville. Being away from the Dallas Cowboys scheme, being on a team that actually has a decent amount of pressure, because this is a Dallas Cowboys team that has been struggling to get consistent pass rushers. And the one thing that I do know the Jacksonville Jaguars have right now is a fairly formidable defensive line right now. Lots of different guys to rush the passer, lots of guys to bring pressure, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see what he does in that type of system, what he does in that type of team, because I think there's lots of positives for him to maybe improve on his interception market share, maybe improve on his pass deflection market share, and those other sort of markers on a team like that. So we'll see in the future, but I think there's lots of positives with Barry Church going forward. So again, my name is James Coburn. You can find my work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well with anybody that you know, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.